So, welcome to VoltsMonster Interactive 9, I believe. With us on this edition, we've got Mark the Pirate and Jason Monsterio. Boys, been a bit of a week.
It has been for us, hasn't it?
So
it's been an interesting week.
We've been, and there is some learnings from it. And
Yes.
They're like the learnings of a strange creature from a foreign world, which involved sleeping in a car park, but we'll come back to that, and generally driving around not really knowing where we'd find things. So, and that was then followed by a very green adventure, very much Kermit the Frog. And we're back in the office today, and we are a bit behind with these. So if you are following these, press the subscription bell, press the notification bell, because then you'll find out when the latest one is. Obviously, really interested in your comments. Mark, tell us about our week.
And who Sleepless. It's Sleepless. Well, at least one day of it was, anyway.
What's your name? Meg Ryan? Will you be banging the table going, oh, oh? Or was it just whimpering at the gates?
There was a lot of whimpering, a lot of whining, a lot of questioning. So yes, it was a fun. So yeah, we eventually went up to
what?
A lot of questioning.
Sanity or other
sanity, yeah, and why? Why can't I find a charger? Why can't they be the right type? Why are they 2 foot tall?
Are you meaning to say that the UK's infrastructure is a bit shit?
Couldn't possibly comment on that. Yes, it's awful.
Okay, so let's look at this in a slightly different thing. Basically, what we did was we went and got a motorbike, an electric motorbike, and we probably slightly overestimated our ability at sourcing a route that would enable Mark to get from Chertsey to Totnes. Now, obviously, no one wants to go to Totnes because it's just full of angry people. But Mark lives there at the top of a hill. And it mostly resulted in him getting facefuls of straw and sleeping in car parks, did it not?
It did, yeah. So we went to Smart Motos in Addiston, and we picked up a 0DS from there. And the plan was to get back before hopefully midnight that same night. At Addiston at about 7 o'clock, I think it was. Eventually, by the time we got underway, and the plan was for me to charge at Solstice Services just before Stonehenge.
That is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? Solstice
it's almost as good as Jason's topic coming up.
Solstice Services, basically, they after you'd sat in a very long traffic jam, they decided to build a services, and it basically consists of like a Starbucks and a McDonald's.
And a McDonald's Beefeater.
Oh, the Beefeater. So
I think there's a co-op there as well.
What you know about Mark the Pirate is he's a vegan. You don't know him, but
nowhere for me to eat.
Like he literally had the choice to eat of grass.
And I did, stuck behind straw lorries.
You had what?
I did, whilst I was stuck behind straw lorries.
Oh yeah, why didn't you eat that? You never told us you could eat it as well. And you've got one of those open face helmet things, haven't you?
Exactly, just popped it up.
And just sort of collect it like a basking shark.
It's very much like a basking shark.
Oh, so maybe that's a tip for vegans. Like, wear an open face helmet and ride outside of a vehicle collecting debris.
So yeah, at Solstice Services, I was hoping anyway, that there would be a charger that I could use, and there was plenty of Type 2 connection chargers. Unfortunately, they were tethered connections, and what I needed for the Zero was an untethered connection that I could plug my own tether into a Type 2 connector.
Can I just make a point here on Zero's behalf? And I think this is a useful piece of advice. when you ride a motorbike, generally you don't have very deep pockets or very large pockets, right? And the bane of all motorcyclists is carrying any form of luggage, right? Would it not be helpful if Zero's motorbikes charged from tethered connections, so you don't have to carry a 6-foot long Type 2 charging cable?
But the alternative was, the only reason I could use that charger is because the Zero had been upgraded to the charge tank, which was an additional.
Hang on a second. If you didn't have the charge tank, don't you have to charge it from a 3-pin?
It's a 3-pin plug, and it takes 10 hours. At least.
And how many days were you planning to take to travel from Chertsey to?
I was hoping to do it in 3 hours.
There's a lot of hoping in this story.
Put it this way: if I was on a nice bike, and this is where, particularly on touring on motorcycles, electric motorcycles anyway, falls down. That if I was on a nice bike, I could have done that within 3 hours easily, and not had that range anxiety, which everybody talked about, and I thought was a myth.
Although saying that, I had significant range anxiety in an ice vehicle on the A303. Partly because
the service stations are closed.
Wiltshire and Somerset, they decide that they're not going to work at the important locations. Like, their only jobs is driving tractors and then closing petrol stations. So when you drive down the A303, after about 7:30 at night, there is not a single petrol station open. And I have got to the end of the A303, having gone through the Blackdown Hills, going, holy crap!
Oh, no.
Am I going to have to wait till like Exeter to get fuel? And then you get to sort of like Honiton or somewhere, and it's like you do find some petrol, but it's about £1.60 a litre or something. And I'm sure they put it up after 7:30 just so that they get all the people that have had range anxiety. So it isn't an entirely EV subject, is it?
No. But I couldn't charge at Solstice.
You basically rode from Chertsey. You left Chertsey, fortunately, at 7 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
And right, so you decided to ride at night. I realise that might be slightly my fault, but right. So you left Chertsey at 7 o'clock in the evening. You went to somewhere like Amesbury. And then found a pub, and
the pub was actually in Wiley, just outside Warminster. Very helpful in the Bell Inn there. They were incredibly good, and managed to get a charge there, which took a lot quicker than I thought it would do.
Did they feed you?
They did feed me.
Oh, okay.
And they were fantastic, very cooperative, very, very helpful. And I thought at that point,
say to you, not only do you ride an EV, you're also a bloody vegan.
And they had a really good vegan menu as well, which is incredible.
Oh, good.
That's awesome. They didn't make you go in the garden and eat grass.
No, they didn't. No.
like acorns and things.
But no, they were very good. So I managed to get back on the road, hoping I would make it to Exeter. I think I limped into Exeter on 2% charge. And there was nothing in terms of charging. I then found out that pod points were available in the town, and that's exactly the right sort of charge that I needed. The one pod point, which wasn't in a locked multi-story car park, had two other EVs
This is
connected
the
to
irony of this conversation, right? The only charger that was of any use to you is shit, because it's like 7 kilowatts, if you're lucky, right? And how have we ended up with like PodPoint being like one of the biggest networks of chargers that are incompatible with most vehicles?
But it gets better, because ZapMap was actually showing me that the road I was standing in, I was standing next to the PodPoint, and it was immediately to my right. And I then Googled the PodPoint, and Google Maps actually has an image of the pod point mounted to the wall and the house that I was looking at. So I sat there virtually in augmented reality, looking at a wall with a pod point on my phone and no freaking pod point on the wall. So at the point that I started screaming and waking several people up,
At what time of morning? This was about 3 o'clock.
This was at 3 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
So the brilliant bit is you've now arrived in Exeter when like literally no one is there. And
No one's there. And woke everyone up.
Ordinarily in Exeter, any other time of the year, there'd be loads of students wandering around vomiting on you, right? You've actually picked the time of year when there would literally be just vagrants. Like, if you're lucky, there's sort of local homeless who sort of hang around where House of Fraser used to be. You would literally only have them if they'd managed to get out of their slumber to come and harass you for like 20p or whatever.
20p. That's always 41p.
Well, of course, it's always 41p. But so, how did you actually get to this charger?
Thankfully, well, before that, I was stopped by the police for trying to disconnect a charger which was EVs were plugged into, and the police were very helpful and said, "Oh, that's a bummer, isn't it?" And then buggered off and left me and suggested I call my.
So, did you just say that Devon and Cornwall police, in your moment of trauma, buggered off and
did
left?
Bugger all to help.
Oh, surprise! What else did they have to do? Because there's no one in Exeter at the moment.
Exactly, and their only suggestion was that I called my recovery company, who were equally as useless.
Oh no!
They wouldn't recover the vehicle because apparently it wasn't taxed.
Hang on, it's Dutch registered.
It's Dutch registered, and it's also an EV, which doesn't require taxing. So yeah, they weren't at all helpful, and so they left me in the lurch as well. So
flag. Sorry.
Green flag. Yep.
So when you come to the UK and go bloody, I'm a Dutch person, whatever. I know all the Dutch people are going to absolutely kill me for sounding like the chef out
the Swiss chef. Yeah.
Right. What do they do with them? What's the car being taxed got to do with anything?
Exactly.
Who invented that rule? Does that apply to all recovery companies?
I've no idea. So
if you're watching this and you know the answer to that, why do recovery companies require your vehicle to be taxed to recover you?
Even there's an EV that doesn't require tax.
Oh, well, of course.
So yeah, that was interesting. But eventually, I got back to the multi-story car park, and I happened to see a light inside the car park, and worked out it was a security guard, and basically said help, and he very, very kindly opened up, let me in, and helped me find the charge point, and let me charge for there overnight, and get a couple of hours sleep as well.
Well, actually, therefore, you know what? The security guard of the underground car park in whatever it's called,
Cathedral Quay in Exeter,
Quay,
he was an absolute legend.
He deserves an honorary VoltsMonster award.
He does indeed, and he was very interested in EVs as well. He had an electric car himself, and was we had a good conversation over the Zero.
Oh, okay. What electric car does he have?
I can't remember. I was too tired.
So you paid attention to the conversation.
Information was going in and straight out the other ear. And I was basically trying to keep all my energy to keep my eyes open.
So you were rescued by a nice bloke who's now an honorary VoltsMonster hero.
He is indeed.
And then you got a bit of charge, and obviously is this when you slept in the car park?
I slept for probably about
at the same time
10 minutes, if that, because I was getting really tired by that point, and it was going to take 4 hours to charge. So I got to probably about 50% charge, thinking that would get me back to Totnes from Exeter, which it did just with 1% left.
Ouch.
So it was a bit squeaky bum.
Well, on squeaky bum, that brings us to Jason Monsterio.
Hello.
Talking of squeaky bums, how's your week been?
It's been good. The highlight of it has been yesterday when we went up to Birmingham and checked out Silence's motorbikes in their head office up in Birmingham.
That was an interesting day out. They've got some
And
I'll put that on screen now. Actually, they will. Bear with me a second.
Mark the Pirate interviewed one of the CEOs.
Is one of the founding directors.
Sorry. Yeah, really good. Quite excited to see what the future holds for Silence, given everything that they showed us yesterday, and where they want to be heading with it. They seem to be very serious about it as well.
They are definitely, and we'll be hearing that interview on VoltsMonster soon. And we've also I've got an SO1 to review for a week.
Yeah,
so
we've got
that'll be good to definitely, yeah.
So the it's kind of a well thought out kind of. I think this is the bike that you've got coming.
Yeah, yep.
The interesting thing, the USP with Silence, without letting it out of the bag too early, it's got a removable battery. So if you, like Mark, had a battery in your thing that was dead, and let's say you couldn't find one, you could actually just book a hotel room, take it out, take it up to your room, plug it in, sleep in a couple.
Oh, that would have
been
been
in the morning.
Wonderful.
So obviously, if you come to Devon, there isn't any hotel rooms left because of staycation. So you'd probably still.
That was one of the problems that I had as well, because I considered taking a hotel, but no, forget it. Out of order.
But it's they're 5K, but they're really well made. They're made in Spain. There's some really good info coming. I think overall, I think they're a thoroughly credible. They're probably the most credible step through scooter I've seen. The Chinese ones always feel a bit. What's the word?
Built to a budget.
Precarious.
Yeah, and sort of, I'm not being 100% sort of convinced that from a longevity point of view they're particularly good for the planet, because I have a feeling they'll all just be abandoned in ditches when they die because they're too expensive to repair, because obviously everyone will look at them and go no. So but I think Silence have got the model about right.
Yeah, definitely. They were really high quality and a sort of proven longevity as well, which is something we'll be covering in the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. So moving on to another bike, Mark, you've got this as your story for this week.
I have indeed, yeah.
It's like a rally chopper.
It does look like a rally chopper. It's actually
looking, isn't it?
It's a new Serial 1, which is a Harley Davidson spin-off. They've decided to create electric bikes, one-off electric bikes, and put them up to raffle, put them up to auction. So this was available for people to bid on. And as you can see there, the winning bid was $14,200.
Wow. Does that money go to charity, or is that literally for the company?
I don't know where it goes to, actually. Yeah, I'd be interested to find out.
Do you know what? For a unique product, 14 grand isn't actually that much.
It's not that much, no.
Overall, look, it's kind of it's really customized. You're talking about a thing that is quite well made, like the levels of detail they've gone into, like where the lights are positioned and things like that. I don't think that's an unreasonable sum. It's a lot by e-bike sort of comparisons, but it is, it's hand custom painted, whatever.
You consider sort of like the average, a decent e-bike would be, you're looking about upwards of $3.5 grand towards $5 grand. So, you're not that far off something like this at that point. And
no, you're not.
This is a one-off.
And it's one-off. So, would I ride it? It's not really my thing. Right? Who would ride a bike like that? That sounds a bit through the keyhole, doesn't it? Who would ride a bike like this?
I'd definitely ride it.
Yeah, but you're a bit weird.
I can see this in round Totnes, actually. Yeah, definitely.
It is a sort of Totnes kind of thing.
It reminds me, it actually gives me a real throwback, a bit of a retro feel, because I remember my cousin had a similar bike when I was a kid. He's a couple of years younger than me. But his would...
You coveted it, did you?
Sorry?
You coveted your mate's bike.
I did, and because the rear...
People at that age would have had sisters that they coveted. Not their own sisters, I mean, other people's sisters.
He didn't have a sister.
Unless you're American, you come from some weird southern state.
Exactly. But the weird thing about this bike is that he had that the back end was on a swinging axle, so you could detach it underneath the seat, and you could actually drift the bike and pedal at the same time. It was fantastic.
When was this? Was this in the 70s?
This was in the 70s, yeah.
Jesus. See, this is when people smoked LSD rather than other more modern things. And only someone on LSD would have decided that actually detaching the back wheel so you could drift the bike is probably a good idea. Can you imagine it now as a feature?
I think health and safety might have a bit of things to say about it.
I don't think CE type approval would apply to that. But yeah. So do we like it? Is that the answer? Do we? I think we do like it. Isn't it?
I like it. Yeah.
Like, stereo's been a bit quiet here, but you know.
I think it looks good. I just think it's ridiculously priced. I don't care that it's a one-off. I could.
Are you seriously angry that it's expensive?
I just think it's a bit of a joke, to be honest with you. Look at it.
Hang on a second.
14 grand.
Hang on a second, Monsterio. This isn't some sort of left-wing or right-wing conspiracy to make people spend more on bikes. This has just happened because someone went, oh, I really like that, I'm going to bid on it, and they're going to spend my hard-earned money on it.
I know, that's what I'm saying. The problem is...
What, that someone got 14 grand to spend on a bike?
On that? That's nice, it looks good, but I just think that they should make more of them.
So
at that price?
At that price?
Yes, no, because they can lower the price then, can't they?
Would you buy one then?
If it was £4 grand and I had it itching in my pocket, yeah, definitely.
If it was £1.42, would you buy it?
Yeah, I'd buy a few of them, and then I'd sell them for 14 grand.
£14.20, would you buy them?
Yeah.
If it was £142, would you buy one?
Yeah.
If it was 1,420, would you buy one?
Yeah, I would. Yeah.
How long have we got?
Oh no, it's just funny. So basically, the upper Monsterio price is about 1,400 quid.
Yeah.
And he would buy one. So I think we like it, even though Monsterio is being a bit cheap.
I'm being a bit, yeah. Okay, it looks good. It is really. I do like the look of it. I like the grips. I like the metallic blue on it. I think it could do with a little cushion on the back though. If you're going to lean back and look proper gangster.
Talking of overpriced crap, we'll go to your story, Monsterio. Oh, so, there's an Audi, and look at it. Actually, for once, it doesn't look like every other Audi. So they must have a new designer, because how did that happen inside Audi? Because all Audis look the same.
Yeah, they're normally quite conservative, aren't they?
Although I would say there is an Audi Skysphere GT or something, which is a 4-door, and it looks just like an Audi A8. So I don't believe Audi are ever going to make this car.
No, definitely not. And if they do, it's not going to look anything like that, is it?
It is.
What do you think of the wheels, James? You've always got comments on EV wheels. So what do you?
I don't mind those. They're not bad.
But look at it.
It looks like somebody's gone in. The wheels look like somebody's gone into the kitchen and they found a steamer, one of those fold-out pedal type ones, and just like that'll do.
Well, in our design studio, that's probably the most unique item they've got, because they've only ever designed one car and just made it in various different sizes. So, you know, like it's one of those things that I just look at it and go, Audi aren't ever going to make that. they managed to they managed to make the R8, which is about the biggest departure from their same car design thing. And I think they winced a bit when they produced that. So producing a car that looks actually quite nice is not going to happen. I love the way you two are giggling.
It'd be good if it did, though.
There's a number of things in this press release that this website, as well, actually, is Audi's media centres. It would be. So I love the way they write about these things. So, for example, it says, with the touch of a button, the driver can take advantage of their freedom and choose their own driving experience. How is that any different from any other car? Right? And it gets better. Either they pilot the 4.94 metre long e-roadster themselves in sports mode with a reduced wheelbase, while the rear wheel steering ensures that the vehicle remains extremely agile despite its dimensions. That's like going, you're a fat bastard, but we're going to make your ass a bit smaller so you can run around corners quicker. Right? But the best bit about it is they then describe it, or they can choose to be chauffeured around in a 5.19 metre GT in the autonomous Grand Touring driving mode while enjoying the sky and scenery.
That's why it's called a skysphere. Must be.
Right, hang on a second. What they're talking about is an autonomous vehicle. It's not chauffeured. It doesn't mean you don't get Parker with it. Give you someone.
Yes, milady.
You just sit on your own, staring out the window, which is much the same as going on a train. What is actually the difference if you were driving this in Germany? What is the difference between that and getting on a train?
Trains are on rails. Start again. Trains are on rails and probably less likely to crash.
Have you been on a train in Germany? They're horrific, but their motorways in Germany are mostly very straight because they don't have planning laws that get in the way, and obviously half the country was run by communists who didn't give people free will. So basically what they did was they just made the motorways in straight lines, and as the motorways were pretty much invented by Hitler, he told you where you had to go.
You had to go.
And if you've driven any other German vehicle, their sat-navs are quite aggressive. So can you imagine the autonomous mode in a Mercedes? We will make you go to the holiday camp where you stay and eat the food that we give you.
Anyway, back to the car. Guess how quick the 0 to 60 is on that given.
Do you know what? I don't give a shit.
I don't care, no.
It'll be really low. And
no, it's not. It's 4 seconds.
Is it?
What?
It's a pathetic 4 seconds, and it looks like that.
Dear God. Why?
I don't know. That's why it's so interesting. This world is a bit confusing when people do stuff like that.
Look, I am just like...
You're going to have an aneurysm in a minute.
Like, you got to love this. Reverence without retro.
Oh, dear. Who wrote
All
that?
Germans have just made German-looking shit for years. It all looks the same. Audis all look like NSUs, which went before them. You know, VWs all look like VWs that went before them. They're all bloody retro. Anyway, can we move on? Because this is just annoying me.
What's next?
I think one of the ones that stuck out for me was this, actually, which we noticed on the motorway yesterday. There was loads of car transporters full of MG
Full
cars.
of MGs.
I then found this story, which is quite something.
Especially given that he won one of our awards as well.
Yeah, well, the reason this is a kind of a standout story is not that we were on the motorway watching car transporters full of MGs, but the MG5 won a VoltsMonster award, did it not?
Good, yeah.
Did indeed, yeah.
In this article, they delivered 3,000 MGs to Portbury Dock nearly, And
I like to think
26% of
that
them were the long-range MG5 estate, which, if any of you have forgotten what that is, MG5. There you go. Wait for the internet. Here we go.
If you
Is
work for
that
Virgin,
now?
go away.
It is not. It is not the most interesting EV ever made. It is not the best looking EV ever made. It's not got the longest range, even when it's called long range. But it is bloody good value for money.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, look,
And 750 quid off as well.
you get 750 quid off, mainly because they've got so bloody many of them in the UK. But in all seriousness, the fact that 26% of that shipment were one of their EV models.
Brilliant.
I'd like to think that in some small little way, the VoltsMonster Awards might have gone to contributing towards that 26%, even if it was just the 0.2.
Yeah. As long as
Well,
we can help you, MG.
But to be fair, what we might contribute to is them actually selling more of them. You never know.
Hopefully.
So anyway, well done to MG, who have managed to deliver electronic products into the UK when no one else can, which is top mark. And B, thank you for delivering a car that we really rate. So that's amazing. Next story is actually one of mine, which is EO charging. Now, if you haven't heard about EO charging, basically EO charging was basically invented in a shed in Norfolk or something, and by a man and his wife, I believe, or a wife and his man, or whatever, however you express it these days. And they've done really, really well rolling out and selling basically 7 kilowatt chargers. And one of their biggest deals was they sold them to Amazon. So Amazon drivers who are on have got franchises or whatever who are buying EV vans, because obviously if you know anything about Amazon, they put a lot of money into Rivian in terms of producing a van for them. Well done to them for this deal, but they basically merged with another company that's then going to float on the NASDAQ.
Excellent.
I think
and that looks like a Type 2 untethered connection, and that's exactly what I was looking for the other morning.
It does look suspiciously like a Type 2 untethered connection,
which I was probably more likely to find in Norfolk than Wiltshire and Somerset and Dorset. So yeah, should have gone there.
One of the amazing things is that it does say here they currently serve some of the world's leading corporations and deployed 50,000 chargers, right? Realistically, that's not actually that many, is it?
No.
In real terms. I don't really buy their methodology, but good luck to them. They're getting out there, and hopefully the float goes well for them, and hopefully they haven't floated too early. So we'll see. If nothing else, it's a British company striving out there and excelling in selling stuff to some big companies. So
definitely, absolutely,
and different countries around the world. So albeit they're now going to be listed in America.
Yeah.
They go from being a British company to an American company. So I'm not really sure how I feel about that. But anyway, let's just move on. Actually, there was a really interesting story the other day that we were talking about. Why haven't we got it in here? Which is what electric vehicles? That is not a reference to a magazine either. That is what, as in the electrical watt. They currently make this, which looks like a 1950s Porsche Speedster or whatever. But interestingly with it, they have announced that they're going to be producing these, which are vans, buses, taxis on their proprietary skateboard chassis, which is this thing you can see down here.
I can see them delivering Amazon packages.
To be honest, I think they look better than the Rivian van.
They do.
Or the rival van.
Mm.
And I like that thing, whatever that is, but that won't come about because no one can make windscreens that look like that. But anyway.
Do you think designers will ever get it that people don't make windscreens that shape? So stop designing cars like it. That should be like the design 101 when you go to car design school.
Yeah, I think that's very not a bad shout. Actually, funny enough, talking to windscreen, slightly off piste, I met a bloke in America, right? And he is if you own a classic car, for example, and they no longer make the windscreen for your car, he can make you one. Wow. But he doesn't make you one out of like a new one. He takes the windscreen from another car and cuts it to shape, right?
Oh.
But the amazing thing with him is he's got a warehouse that must be 100,000 square feet, and it's got every conceivable windscreen you've ever seen in your life, and probably as many again as you haven't, on racks that go floor to ceiling. And you go in and you see him and you say to him, I need a windscreen for some obscure car. And he can look at a photograph of the car, know exactly what it is that you're looking for. He then climbs up, finds the next nearest windscreen, puts it on a bench and cuts it out.
Brilliant.
That's incredible.
And, you just go, how did you get that?
How did you do that?
Yeah.
So
need more people like that.
It's like amazing. It's like one of those things. But anyway, slightly off topic. But do you know what? I think good luck to them. And these guys are based in Cornwall. So what electric vehicles? This is the most credible small EV manufacturer release that I've seen in a while. Like because we've looked at things that are in Scotland, in Wales, and in the UK, and some of them are a bit man in his shed. But what do you think, boys?
I really like that.
I'm looking forward to getting to see some of these vehicles. Hopefully interviewing the Watt team, and good luck to them. So they make a success out of it.
Yeah. Mark, you almost sound a bit dismissive.
No, not at all.
Okay, it was just the tone of your voice. I was thinking, is he taking the piss or?
No, I'm fully on board with this.
No, they look good, and it's good that they're local as well.
I quite like the little 1950s Porsche thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
But anyway, I think their concept with this with these vans is that they'll be sort of modular, so you can build them in different sizes, and because they're not going to build millions of them, they can go through on the small series type approval. So I think there's I wish them every best bit of luck, and I think we should go and see them. Mark,
yeah, definitely.
That's one of your jobs. You need to go and see them, because I actually think the way they've gone about it looks really good.
Yeah, I'm sure there's an interesting backstory there as well.
Yeah, I'm sure. Anyway, next story, which is also one of mine, which did make me laugh. And we did sort of discuss this in the office, right? So, of course, as everyone knows, British MPs are very connected to the public's will, and they spend lots of time representing our values, don't they?
Allegedly.
And then they spend some time, right, including Grant Shapps, who's the bloke who is allegedly the transport minister, asking an art school, right, because of course artists know a lot about functional design, to make EV chargers as iconic as red phone boxes.
Which there are none of them
there
anymore.
Is a big I don't know if Grant Shapps has actually driven a fucking EV. There's a problem here. It's not what they look like, right? It's not what they sound like.
It's how many they are.
It's like how many are there and what they are.
And can we charge it?
To charge their car with a 7 kilowatt charger. And Mr. Schatz, in case you're watching this, which I'm sure you are, because I'm sure you're an avid viewer, what you actually need to do is build some more bloody nuclear power stations so that we can have 50 kilowatt ones. Or everyone needs to go out and buy ZPN Energy ones, because if they did, you could solve the problem. I don't care what they look like, if I'm honest. I just want to plug the bloody thing in and charge my car.
Charge and have it working.
Yeah.
You know, because as we started this latest VoltsMonster Interactive 9, the current situation left an elderly man sleeping in a car park.
Actually, I will have a point on what they look like, because the pod point ones, absolutely useless design. Why put something mount it on a post which is below bumper height, so when cars are parked in front of it, you can't see it, particularly at 2 o'clock in the morning when it's dark and there's no illumination on the damn thing. It's it was like searching for a needle in a haystack, which I was doing on a lorry as well.
Worse than that, it was almost into the territory of searching for a needle in a pile of needles. Because there was lots of things on ZapMap that looked like chargers, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're just ornaments that sit at the side of the road and don't work.
Don't work.
One of the other interesting things about this story, and bearing in mind, this is money, I think is something to do with the Daily Mail, remember rightly, and correct me if I'm wrong, right?
No, I think you're right.
One of the funniest things about this, at the moment, he's instructing someone to make them as iconic as an object that the government spent a lot of time removing from us, right? And replacing with strange toilet-shaped things, and then started removing them as well.
Didn't they do the same with the London bus as well?
A trial in London, this company called Trojan Energy are making things that are invisible. But the best bit about the Trojan Energy chargers, which I do like a lot, right? Which I don't know if anyone's noticed this. I'm just trying to pick up a photograph of it. Like they say, what are we hiding? Right? Well, they hide it initially until it sticks out of the ground like that as a trip hazard for blind people.
Yeah. That's awful.
Right? And all the actually, obviously, because that's photoshopped. If you actually look at the real images, look at that. How many?
That's really iconic.
They're going to be covered in dog piss after a couple of weeks.
Well, hang on a second. They lower into the ground, but not before they've been pissed on repeatedly.
Yeah.
And the question is how many dogs are going to end up with like a sort of defibrillator-sized electric shock after their piss has rotted the inside of these Trojan chargers?
Let me do it once.
But hang on a second. But the irony of this story is not lost on me. At the moment, Grant Shapps is asking them to make them iconic. He's also encouraged people to make them invisible.
Unbelievable.
Which do you want, you stupid man? Invisible or iconic? Or in
that sums it up.
In that case, if I went to the council and said, "Can I stick a thing in the ground with a dangly bit of wire hanging off it?" Right? Would they give you planning permission?
Yeah. I've just tried to get my windows replaced with like-for-like windows, exactly the same, and the hoops that I had to jump through was unbelievable. So,
Sorry, did you just say you had to apply for planning permission to put the same windows in your house that you already had?
The same windows in my house that I already have, to replace them with like-for-like, I had to apply for planning permission.
That's because, sorry, hang on. That's probably because you live in South Hams and they've got the most uncooperative planning department.
No, apparently it's because it's a flat, and the same in all jurisdictions apparently.
Well, that's because you're a peasant. You should have bought yourself a proper house. That's your own stupid fault.
My own stupid fault. Had it coming.
You should know better. If you live in South Hams, you're supposed to buy a fucking house to live in. But no, in all seriousness, I don't get it. Every day, I get it that every day is a school day, but currently every day is a like a moment of why.
Oh, really? Yes.
So basically what they needed to do to install these is do what Virgin Media did. And that's dig up every pavement in the UK and install about 14,000 trip hazards.
Yep.
But they'll also, when they dig up every pavement in the UK, it'll be like Virgin Media all over again, where they pretty much cut off every other service that you needed to your house while they installed their ducts, which are too small.
Mm.
And the best bit is, right, what happens in streets where Virgin Media are already there? Because Virgin Media are talking about pulling high voltage cables through their own ducting.
Didn't Virgin tell us that that wasn't possible?
I was told that by a Virgin engineer, where he said our broadband won't work if they do that. But they did issue a press release saying that's what they were going to do. But how many high voltage cables do you want to allow the gas board to cut through while they're mending a gas leak?
Or have high voltage cables next to a leaking gas main?
Well, quite. Yeah, and of course, if it's maintained by Virgin Media, it will definitely be leaking electricity. So on the basis they can't keep the internet in their existing cables. But yeah, so well done, Grant Shapps, for issuing a contract to produce something that you've actually asked someone to hide. So what could happen is
That's part of the course of the Conservatives, isn't it?
It's what?
That's part of the course of the current government, isn't it? I'm going to give you a contract. Hide it.
Well, to be fair, I'd use the phrase any government as opposed to this government. You know, bearing in mind when Tony Blair was in power, he basically allegedly gave loads of contracts to his friends.
His friends, yeah.
To run everything from prisons to prison vans to intelligence gathering services and all sorts of things that ordinarily would have been run by the state. So, but yeah, obviously in the current market, the government hasn't got enough money or doesn't have the ability to print enough money to own car charging itself. So I'm also amused that it is in Brent and Camden, which are two of the most car hating boroughs in Britain. So the funniest thing will be is when you've parked illegally whilst charging and they come along and remove your car and the charging post out of the ground at the same time. But it does also say there are mounts that sit flush to the pavement, and they can attach their own charging lance.
What's the why the quotation marks on lance? That's
it's an odd word, isn't it?
Mm.
Why didn't they call it a phallus or a?
I wonder why.
That would be more aligned with Trojan, I guess. Yeah.
Well, exactly. That's what I was thinking. God, it took a while to catch up. Because I think Trojan is a brand of condoms in America, I believe. But anyway, I love the fact that it's underway to test a charging solution that is almost invisible, except when you're using it and it becomes a trip hazard. So, and obviously they remain invisible to blind people. But yeah, I think we should move on from that point. Oh dear. Look, at least we've moved on from challenging other countries, you know. We've moved on to the true sport of this type of thing, of abusing politicians.
Well, they deserve it, don't they? We can all agree with that.
I can't remember, but I have a suspicion that Grant Shapps changed his name.
I think you're right.
Didn't he get embroiled in something else where he changed his name?
Allegedly.
I can't remember. But anyway, what he'll basically do is once he's got a not very iconic design that doesn't work, he'll probably change his name to something else. But anyway, we've moved on to past the sport of challenging our Italian friends and on to abusing UK politicians, which is entirely appropriate. Right, where were we? Oh, there it is. Did we have any more news? Oh no, there was one last bit of news. I am the leader of all news this week. Monsterio, how do you feel about this? Because you're a bit of a communist, right?
Go on.
UK government planning to adopt the zero emission vehicle mandate, which is basically the same system they have in California to force a quota of electric vehicles.
I think that's a bit quite communism-y.
Well, the interesting thing in it is it says it's currently open to public consultation.
But
So you could provide your own public consultation to this.
but would they listen?
I don't know. Do they listen to public consultation? We just covered the fact that they obviously listen to all of their constituents' needs and wants,
And artists.
and do an exceptional job of presenting our interests in Parliament, where they go and with expenses.
So who would these be forcing? Will they be forcing the manufacturers to make more of the EVs, or
Well,
making quotas of which
as
have
I
to be sold?
understand it, car companies currently have a mandated average CO2 limit that they're required to do, which is what they basically did a few years ago. If you remember, Aston Martin, because it couldn't meet it, did a deal with Toyota on the IQ and produced something called the Signet, which basically they just put a grill on it and made it 3 times the price as the Toyota one, but it was exactly the same. But what it did was it brought down their average CO2. I think we'll probably have a system similar to that.
It's quite sneaky, though, isn't it? Doing that way, that's quite clever.
Just because those of you who might not remember the Signet, you probably there you go.
What? No way. Is there an Aston Martin badge on that?
Yep.
Are you fucking joking? Even with the wide arches, it looks like a piece of shit.
Based on.
I know, yeah, I remember the Toyota insignia, but not the.
There you go.
The IQ. Oh my god.
So that was.
I mean, that's clever.
That's
but
the Toyota. That's the Aston Martin.
It's like selling a part of your soul, isn't it? Like, if you were Aston Martin, that must have hurt a lot. Like, look, boys, we're not really hitting those quotas. We might get shut down. I don't want to have to say this, but we might have to make a really small, shitty hatchback and just put it together as quickly as possible. Just make it look like a frog if you can, actually. I want it to have some really big, buggy eyes and a really stretched grille.
Like, it did have a nicer interior of sorts. Assuming that you wanted to, like, vomit colour your interior.
Oh my, what is that? Goodness me, Aston Martin, you just lost a tiny bit of respect from me. You've let yourself down.
You could have had it in pink. That would have suited you.
They've disrespected themselves by doing this. They've insulted
basically,
themselves.
As far as I could work out, the Toyota IQ was basically a fridge. Because it came, it didn't matter which one you got, it had air conditioning because it was designed to be sold in Japan, almost like in that K sector. Yeah. And so it was basically a fridge on wheels. Because I can't think of any other reason to drive one other than to keep your shit cold. Because it's kind of like a smart car. Which I know smart was a bit of a stretch of the word smart, because there's nothing very smart about it in the first place, because most of the original ones fell over.
Yeah.
I know, it's smart because they're small. Everyone with a small cock is clever now.
You are very clever. That is true.
That's the first time you've ever said that. Well done. Thank you.
Who knew you were so clever?
More clever than me. I learned from the best.
So anyway, we've slightly gone off topic here, but they're trying to do the same thing, but mandate the percentage that of EVs should be made.
Yeah.
If anyone hadn't actually noticed, right? I think the government did say that in 2030, no more petrol or diesel.
Yeah.
That's not made anymore.
And it kind of takes me back to Mark's experience that unless you actually have chargers that actually work, that are actually accessible,
what's the point of having that many EVs?
Why bully people into having them?
That's why ZPN exists, isn't it? Because there's this huge gap in the market, and they're doing everything they can to make it better. So, fingers crossed.
There are some really interesting things coming out of ZPN. With one of them, I would love to tell you about, but I can't. I'm not allowed. It's embargoed. But I would genuinely say I don't really think there's a need for this type of legislation. It's like creating legislation for the sake of it. But in all seriousness, if you're going to tell everyone they've got to have an EV by 2030, obviously apart from the diesel and petrol that's left,
sort the infrastructure out.
The infrastructure needs a serious sort out.
It's like saying you need to drink more water, but you can only go to the sea.
Like, just as a message to other charging companies, let me give you another scenario. All these charging companies are producing these crappy 7 and 22 kilowatt chargers, right? Yeah. ZPN Energy have grid enablement energy storage, so you could actually have 50 kilowatt chargers. You don't have to sell 7 kilowatt chargers. You don't even have to have a 3-phase supply. You can actually have 50 plus kilowatt chargers that from their tech. So I don't understand why all of these other charging companies are not accessing that. Or alternatively, if you haven't got enough supply and you can only put 1 7 or 122 kilowatt charger, why not ring up ZPN, which seems like the obvious choice, say, can I have an underground or overground energy store and put in 7 of them? Because the 722 kilowatt chargers are only about 250 quid each to make. So why aren't they doing it? It doesn't make any sense to me, and I don't. If you were the CEO of PodPoint, why wouldn't you ring up someone like ZPN and say, and there's a couple of people who can do it, but Alf and Bahir could probably do it as well. But why wouldn't you ring them up and say, give me some energy storage so we can actually roll out more chargers faster? And I think that's a critical point. And it's all seriousness. I know we have a laugh on these things, but in all seriousness, making elderly people sleep in underground car parks at 5 o'clock in the morning is not acceptable, particularly when all they've done in their life is be a pirate and go around the sea and murder trees. That's their sole life. And you're making them sleep in underground car parks. That's an important lesson.
That was my penance for murdering trees.
Sorry?
That was my penance for murdering the trees.
Yeah, I think karma is a bit.
I've done my time.
And if anyone's watching,
you've done your time
wondering what we're talking about, Mark, who's too poor to live in a house and bought a flat and then had to apply for planning permission to replace the same windows he already had, decided that his view was slightly obstructed by some trees and decided that he would remove them by hand. And I think it's made his wife quite happy.
That would be good.
When we stop, look, if we could cheer our wives up, that'd be amazing. And if only it was as easy as chopping a tree down.
There wouldn't be any trees left.
No. So obviously, Monsterio, you obviously don't have a wife for obvious reasons, as we've established that you're very clever. And is there any learnings from today's VoltsMonster Interactive that would force you to kind of go and click the subscribe, click the bell notification?
All of it. All of it has been an eye-opener. I'm going to show my neighbours. I'm going to show my neighbours this.
Have you actually been paying attention, or have you been playing with your diminutive appendage?
My very clever penis.
Why did you have to lower it to that? There was me being.
Oh, that was the lowest point of this whole interactive. You've called Mark a homeless bum.
No. I didn't call him homeless. I called him elderly.
Things to say. I'm going to take them to the pub after this.
I think the insinuation might have been there for sleeping in car parks. I might have been a homeless bum.
So anyway, on that note, if you like what we do and you want to listen to the geriatric pirate, the man with a small appendage, or myself even, press the notification bell, press subscribe, and we'll see you next time. And it's bye from me.
Goodbye
Bye
for me,
from
folks.
The geriatric street murdering pirate.
Stay clever, boys.
And Clever Dick.